He has literally hired hundreds of reporters, giving that first job to so many who have gone on to make broadcasting their careers. In addition to his day job, he's been instrumental in building, evolving, and helping manage a national association we all know very well. Tell me a story, he says. Well, I think it's time to hear about his.
It's no surprise Mark Kraham was drawn to TV at an early age. Growing up in Baltimore, he listened to legendary broadcasters who made lasting impressions. With a vivid imagination and interest in baseball and radio, at the age of 9, Mark recorded a make-believe ball game providing the play-by-play.
First pitch. The ground ball hit to short. Shortstop up with it, throwing to first, and that retires the side. No runs, a hit, no errors, and one left at the end of 7. 1 time.
Mark's first real job began at WRNR in Martinsburg, where he won more than 24 news and public affairs awards, including Best Investigative Reporting 2 years in a row from the Associated Press. In 1990, Mark transitioned to television. 4 years later, he became reporter/assignment editor at WHAG-TV in Hagerstown, which would be his home for the next 30 years.
In Hagerstown, Mark Kraham, News 25.
He built local connections within the community, focusing on accurate, unbiased information and gaining the trust of first responders, government leaders, and organization administrators.
We would trust each other in that when the story could be broken, I would give him as much as I possibly could.
He has never been afraid to ask the tough questions, but I never shied away from answering those questions because of Mark's dedication and sincerity.
In 1998, he became host of Issues and Insiders with Mark Kraham, a local public affairs program that ran for 22 years.
WDVM's Issues and Insiders, I'm Mark Kraham.
The show featured discussions of complex issues and problems facing the region and gave a platform to many nonprofit organizations looking to publicize their events.
Here in our community, he's best known for his support of nonprofit organizations.
One nonprofit Mark became closely aligned with was the Rumsey Radio Hour, an old-style radio program performed in front of a live audience.
It was just a joy to work with him. He had such a history about the medium and such a history about what audiences would respond to in terms of humor.
Mark is a longtime member of the Radio Television Digital News Association.
Welcome to the Radio Television Digital News Association's 40th Annual Edward R. Murrow Awards.
In 2003, he was elected to serve on their board of directors.
Mark, as chairman of the board of RTDNA, played a critical role in saving our association from financial ruin.
RTDNA spotlights and rewards excellence in journalism, but it also serves as a career builder for persons new to the broadcast industry. As news director at WHAG, Mark hired literally hundreds of reporters, many of whom are still broadcasting. His advice to young reporters was simple: be yourself, find a character, touch an emotion, tell me a story. Here are a few of the people hired by Mark.
So thank you so much for everything that you've done for me, for the rest of the people you've given a start to.
You deserve this. The Silver Circle is definitely where you belong, and thank you so much for everything you've done.
Congratulations, Mark. We love you.
Well, thank you, everyone, and thank you, National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. Isn't it cool to say that, isn't it? The National Capital Chesapeake chapter. Thank you to DC News Now for that nice video. I don't know where you found some of those clips, you know. That was some heavy hair I had there. I think that would stay in place on a 30-mile-an-hour wind, okay, you know. And it was actually not too long ago, a couple of the reporters at the station were going back through some archives, and they found one of those clips, and they said, "Mark, it's amazing. You haven't changed a bit in 30 years. You look just like you did 30 years ago." Well, I felt pretty good about that. So I told the story at a family reunion, and one of my cousins said, "Well, you do look the same as you did 30 years ago. Problem is, 30 years ago, you looked like a man in his 60s. Nothing like family to keep you humble." I guess it was inevitable that I would get into broadcasting. As the picture showed, I was glued to the TV set, watching Stu Kerr be some comedic character for children in the morning, wearing a suit and tie, delivering the news at night. I listened to Chuck Thompson and Bill O'Donnell with the play-by-play of my beloved Orioles baseball. And then there was Jerry and Al delivering the news, but also setting a supreme role model for future broadcasters like me. You know, there were other influences as well. After all, I grew up in the golden age of television. You know, there were shows that had news themes. And stop and think about it. The Adventures of Superman. It was at a newsroom. Well, it was a newspaper, but nonetheless an operating newsroom. For example, you had the mild-mannered Clark Kent, who thought he was Superman, and we all worked with a few guys like that. Then there was the beautiful Lois Lane, who gloated a bit, and rightly she should have, when she would scoop Clark on a story. Then there was the new kid on the block, Jimmy Olsen, who was always breaking something or getting in trouble, and somebody had to help him out. And leader over them all was Perry White, the seasoned news professional who barked out, "Kent, get out there and get that story." But you know, it wasn't until I became a news manager that I understood why Perry White seemed angry all the time. My first day at a radio station, I walked into the studio where a thick cloud of smoke hung in the air. The on-air jock had a cigar in his mouth and was clenching his teeth. It smelled like some insect fumigation device. And he says, "Do you smoke?" Well, I said, "No." "Do you drink?" "Well, a beer, a wine." "You'll never make it in broadcasting," he says. But here we are 40 years later. We're looking back at a successful career. You know, back then things were different. People smoked in the newsroom. They smoked in the studio. And in fact, by the color and consistency of the smoke hanging in the air, or what it smelled like, you could tell who had been working that day. Sometimes it was less smoke. Sometimes it was smoke that had a little extra punch to it, you know. But I remember when there was not much smoke there, when Dave, the vegan, was working. It always smelled like a fresh produce stand there, and so did Dave, you know. I've had the opportunity to work with so many talented folks, and together we made quality news programs. The great Lou Scally is here this evening, a Silver Circle member. And Lou, I worked with Lou for 30 years. It was always a joy. You know, at the end of the day, we were getting the newscast on the air, and he'd come on the air. And I remember one time they were talking about the comet. You know, right now they're talking about, well, watch the comet, get a picture of the comet. And he was telling the viewers, you know, you don't need a telescope, just use your binoculars. And so the anchor said, "Lou, will you be using binoculars tonight to look at the comet?" And Lou admitted, "Well, I used to have binoculars, but Mrs. Scally doesn't let me have them anymore." I had Merv Block, who taught me how to write. He became a lifetime friend and still is. I check in on him every now and then. And for our newer reporters, I want to say one thing. Please don't depend on AI. And remember, just tell the news. Don't prejudge or decide whether one side is right or wrong. Just deliver the news in an unbiased manner. And speaking of new journalists, I originally got into this business to tell stories, but I found an unexpected blessing along the way. I was able to start the careers of so many talented people. In the video there were 68 people on that video that Jack was able to edit for us there. But I went looking for photos for that segment. I found 280, still in the business. Somebody said, you have an eye for talent. I guess I believe them now. 280. The total is somewhere in excess of 500 that I hired, but I'm so happy that so many of them are still in the business. And we've got one, for example, Shanika's here tonight. And I know you got up, what time did you get up this morning? 2? 1? Every day. 3 in the morning. Okay, yeah, doing traffic, in the morning show, and one other story. The sheriff Laymaster there was talking about giving me scoops. One time I happened to be riding with him, and he got dispatched to a hazmat call, and we got there, and there were fire trucks and emergency vehicles everywhere. He parked the car and he went down over the hill. I stayed in the car. There happened to be one of our state senators was riding in the back seat of the car. And so the emergency crew came out and they said, we're going to have to get 2 of these trucks out of here, but this vehicle's in the way. Well, we couldn't find the sheriff, so I slipped into the front seat there and drove the sheriff's car. Didn't turn on the lights of the siren, though, but I'd moved it, and after that, I thought, well, I certainly will be in trouble. So when he came back, I told him, and he said, well, you should have turned the lights on when you moved it. So it's interesting. With those new reporters, my advice has always been the same. Be yourself. Find a character in the story. If you read a book or you go to a movie, the first thing you learn about at the opening of the movie is the character. You learn about their friends. You learn about what they do. So for us to tell a good story, find that character. And then once you have that character, now you can touch an emotion with them. You cry with them. You laugh with them. You feel happy when they have successes. Yes, tell me a story. And these folks that I hired continue to do that. I'm so proud of them. About a year ago, I started my own PR firm. My principal account is the Asian American Center in Maryland. I get to work every day with a young lady named Elizabeth Chung, who truly believes in equity, empowerment, and enrichment. So here we are at the induction of the Gold and Silver Circle. It's a little overwhelming. Congrats to all the fellow winners that won tonight. You so richly deserve it, and the video shows. But especially thanks to my wife, Angie. This is for you. You've put up with me and the challenges of working in TV news, the phone calls at 3 o'clock in the morning, the late nights at elections, and interrupted dinners to go take a call to manage a crisis. Yes, this is yours. And I'll remind every one of you here tonight, when you go home this evening, thank your spouse, your husband, your wife, your partner, however you refer to your significant other, and thank them for the support that they give you so you can be on top of your game. Yes, the game we call broadcasting. Thank you.